A very good morning. You're watching NDTV World. Let's get you our top story, and that is coming out of Syria. I'm Divya Vadva. You're watching NDTV 24/7. Syrian rebels captured the city of Hama, a major victory in a week-old lightning advance across northern Syria, and a devastating new blow to President Bashar al-Assad and his Russian and Iranian allies. Now, after years locked behind frozen front lines, the rebels have burst forth to mount the swiftest battlefield advance by either side since a rebellion against Assad descended into civil war 13 years ago. The capture of Hama gives them control of a strategic central city that never managed to seize before. And we have my colleague Ghazali joining us. Ghazali, what's the situation in Syria at the moment? Are the rebels proceeding towards the capital, Damascus?
Yeah, certainly a big setback for Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria. He has been seeking help from Russia, from Iran and other allies. But as of now, the situation is that though Iran, Iraq and Syria are all sort of saying that they will support and providing that firepower to Assad, but big cities like Ham and Aleppo, Idlib, and now these rebel forces who were earlier part of Al-Qaeda and other groups are now marching and are very poised to move towards another big city called Homs. And then the next city would be Damascus, the capital of Syria. The visuals coming out of Syria suggest that perhaps the regime forces, or say the Syrian army forces, have been leaving their post, quitting their post, leaving behind arms and ammunition, which is now falling in hands of these the rebel forces, led by factions of Al-Qaeda, led by some secular factions as well. And the situation is of utter chaos because people who are living in the areas held by the Syrian regime, held by the Assad forces, are now leaving those areas and are moving towards the border areas to leave Syria now. This has never happened in Syria, that any area held by regime or held by the Assad family would fall to the rebels in such a quick time, like in a week, just after 2 days after the Israel and Lebanon announced their ceasefire. The rebel forces launched a fresh attack on Assad's forces. And since then, from Aleppo, from Idlib, from the border areas of Syria and Turkey, they're now moving towards the center of the cities, towards the major cities, capturing one after the another. And perhaps what the intelligence sources of different Arab countries suggest, that these forces may be able to capture the national capital of Syria or the bigger cities like Homs and Damascus in some time.
Right. Thank you so much, Ghazali. We will keep coming back to you for more on that. Moving on now, an Israeli strike tore through a tent camp for displaced Palestinians in southern Gaza, killing at least 21 people. Now, Israel said that it was targeting Hamas militants hiding there and that it took steps to avoid harming civilians. The attack comes as Amnesty International, a human rights organization, released a report on the war in Gaza that accuses Israel of genocide. Israel rejected the report as false. Let's get you the latest from France now. And French President Emmanuel Macron has said that he will name a new prime minister in the coming days to prevent France from sliding deeper into political turmoil, rejecting growing pressure from the opposition for him to resign. This is after Prime Minister Michel Barnier, who resigned following a no-confidence vote in the parliament. In a 10-minute address to the nation, Macron rejected the opposition pressure to stand down. He has gone on to say that he is going to stay in his post fully until the end of the mandate in 2027. He thanked the outgoing Prime Minister for his dedication during his brief term as the Prime Minister and accused the French far right and hard left of collaborating in an anti-Republican front to bring down the government.
I'm currently standing in the French capital, Paris, just at Place de la République, and the French President Emmanuel Macron has delivered a speech to the French people just minutes ago. The speech is important because it was the first speech that President Macron delivered after the fall of his government. The government was led by a centre-right Prime Minister, Michel Barnier, who lost the vote of confidence in the parliament. The vote resulted in a 331 to 577 against Michel Barnier, who eventually lost the vote, and his government stands toppled as of Wednesday. Today is Thursday. It's Thursday evening. President Macron has just spoken to the people, and there are a couple of key things to take away from his speech that I'm going to talk you through right now. The first thing that is important is the big question of who the next Prime Minister will be and when the next government will be appointed. Now, to quote Macron, he said that in the upcoming days, a next Prime Minister and government will be appointed. So the timeline is not clear, but he definitely said in the upcoming days, a new Prime Minister and government will be put in place. The second key takeaway is about the budget, over which the no confidence motion took place in the first place. As far as the budget is concerned, Macron said that a new budget is going to be introduced as of mid-December. Now, whether that budget is going to pass or not is of course the question in the air, and it can only be decided after a new government is put in place. So that of course also remains something to be seen. The third thing that President Macron talked about is his own tenure, which he promised he's going to serve till its end, and it ends in May of 2027. So that is the third thing that Macron talked about. Other than this, he also did not fail to take a dig at the far right as well as the left. And in saying that, he said that the right and the left got united, came together against the French Republic. He said that they undid rather than did something for the French Republic. So those are the main key takeaways from what President Emmanuel Macron has just spoken to in his televised speech to the nation for the first time after the fall of his government. The big question on who the Prime Minister is going to be still looms large, and it's going to be seen in the upcoming days as President Emmanuel Macron says who will take reins of the French government. This is Paridhi Bhanot reporting for NDTV from Paris.
In other news, according to reports, Ukrainian President Zelensky's delegation met with senior representatives of the United States President-elect Donald Trump. The delegation met in Washington with Trump's choice for White House National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his Ukraine ambassador Keith Kellogg. The meet is seen as an aim for Ukraine to build contacts with the incoming administration of Donald Trump, who has promised to end the war in Ukraine upon taking office. And in South Korea, the police are investigating President Yoon for allegedly insurrection over his short-lived declaration of martial law. Military officials have been questioned by MPs, and earlier President Yoon had accepted the resignation of the defense minister, who apologized for his role in Tuesday night's shock move that Yoon has not publicly spoken since an emergency vote in Parliament early on Wednesday forced him to reverse his decision and is under pressure to resign. And various of the buildings of South Korea's National Assembly's national flag there. I mean, of course, this is what has been taking place. South Koreans poured into the streets of central Seoul to protest against President Yoon for declaring martial law. Yoon is facing an impeachment vote following the stunning but brief imposition of martial law that brought armed troops into the streets of Seoul. The Democratic Party and other small opposition parties submitted a joint motion to impeach Yoon on Wednesday over his martial law declaration the previous night. In an exclusive chat with NDTV, the German Consul General in Kolkata, Barbara Voss, has spoken about the progress of the Indo-German Partnership for Green and Sustainable Development. Now, this has been established in 2022 following the signing of the Indo-German Partnership for Green and Sustainable Development by Indian Prime Minister Modi and German Chancellor Scholz. This is a landmark partnership providing a framework for enhanced cooperation between India and Germany, aligning their efforts with the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement.
The Indo-German Partnership for Green and Sustainable Development was signed between Prime Minister Modi and Chancellor Scholz. And of course, joining me now is the German Consul General in Kolkata. Ma'am, very quickly, this is an interesting, sort of partnership between two countries. And what are the areas that the GSDP is now really taken off? And if you could mention some of these projects that are making an impact.
Yeah, thank you very much. So you mentioned the right word already. It's a partnership, so it's not that one party is saying, okay, we do this and that, and the other is just following. So it's agreed, it was signed, as you said, by Prime Minister Modi and our Chancellor in 2022. And so then afterwards, like the Indian and the German side sat together and they agreed on the most important areas of cooperation and on the projects as well. And as I said as well, I mean, for us it is also very important to always mention that a lot of projects are happening as well in the 11 states here in the East and in the Far East that are under our jurisdiction of the German Consulate General. So that was the reason why as well it was important for us that we have the conversation series here today to make sure that 300 million people of India are also included in this partnership. And as you heard today, I mean, there's a lot going on, sustainability in agriculture, women empowerment, and a lot of areas where like crops are used, that are adapted to climate change, and that you use like less chemicals in agriculture. So these are all very important areas, and they suit, our area here because it's an agricultural area, and we would like to make sure that women can really earn their living on their own, and that changes not only their standing in the society, but it makes it as well easier for them to send their children to school if they earn money, and then you have this link to education and as well to livelihood. So, and that's what we are doing.
Absolutely. And, Prime Minister Modi on several occasions has also spoken about, Viksit Bharat 2047, which is India's developmental goals for 2047. And, gender is such an important part and conversation to have around green and sustainable development partnerships between India and Germany. So in that context, what was the conversation like, and where are we as far as those areas are concerned?
Yeah, I mean, we all agreed that there's still a lot to be done, but that a lot of things were achieved already, so which is always good to state. And then we agreed as well that we have to include all parts of society, so LGBTQI community is also very important to include, and it's very difficult for all of them to have access to loans. I mean, financing is very important, because if you want to start something or a small business, for example, you need to have some money in order to be able to start it. That was the reason why it was also important that KfW, our development bank, was represented, and as well GIZ, of course, the two implementing partners of German Development Cooperation. And I think this all goes hand in hand as well with UN Women. They are also a very important partner in our development cooperation. And I think this only works if we all work together, and everybody is like doing their part wherever they have their expertise.
And finally, one last question. There are concerns over meeting climate goals, or even the commitment to climate goals in some of the Western democracies as well. Germany and India have a very strong partnership. But do you see any sort of roadblocks, stumbling blocks anywhere?
Of course, I mean, the budget is always a problem. I mean, everywhere. Not only the discussions now in Baku, but as well loss and damage in Dubai. It's difficult to reach the goals that everybody says, or all the experts tell us, the money that we will need. This is a difficult time, of course. I mean, not only with a lot of crises around the world, but as well, I mean, with us, we have government crisis, we don't have a budget, and we have constraints as well with our economy. So a lot of challenges everywhere. But I think as well, especially in India, I think we all agree that none of us can reach our goals without India. I mean, India is a very, very important player and an important partner, and that's the reason why we are also so happy that we have the GSDP with India. But I mean, of course, there are a lot of challenges ahead, and it won't be easy. But I mean, we all have to work for it, because I mean, we only have one world, and so it's in our common interest to do whatever we can. And we are very committed to reaching our goals, even though it will be difficult for us as well. And we don't blame anybody else that they can't do it, but the contrary is right. We would like to work together in order to achieve all our goals together.
Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
In other news, Elon Musk's XAI has raised $6 billion in new capital, according to a regulatory filing wrapping up a funding round that has been in the works for months and was set to value the artificial intelligence startup at more than $40 billion. And a Boeing plea deal intended to resolve a case related to two fatal crashes of its planes has been rejected by a US judge. The plane maker agreed that the US government in July to plead guilty to one count of criminal fraud, face independent monitoring and pay a $243 million fine. However, Judge Reed O'Connor struck down the agreement on Thursday, saying it undermined the court and that diversity requirements for hiring the monitor were contradictory. And with that, we're slipping to a very short break. Back with a whole lot more on the other side. Just stay with us. Welcome back to NDTV World 24/7. Let's get you the latest in regard to the investigation that's going on into the shooting of the United Healthcare CEO. Now, Brian Thompson, who died due to that shootout that took place right outside his hotel in New York City. Now, new images have appeared. The department has released photographs showing a man wanted for questioning in connection with the killing. The words deny and defend and depose were written on shell casings recovered from the scene of the crime of the United Healthcare CEO. The police are still searching for the gunman who opened fire on Thompson on Wednesday morning outside that hotel in New York City.